Wait. Thank you.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Mine Mayday, the show all about Spider-Girl and her world. We are on our multiversal jaunt through the multiverse here with this episode covering Spider-Verse. If we appreciate everybody watching, and if you have not, go to patreon.com/SpideyDude Network. All of our patrons over there on Patreon, such as Allison, Cindy, Ed, Georgia, Greg, Janelle, Jessica, Catherine, Kale, Keegar, Laura Howard, Master Dramin, Phoenician, Scott, Vanessa, Jurgen, and Adam. Thank you guys for your support over there on patreon.com/Spidey Network. And of course, our VIPs, other Scott, Sebastian, Vinkman, and Winnipeg Webhead. Thank you guys for your support over on Patreon. Of course, if you haven't checked out our other great shows here on the network, check out Clone Saga Chronicles and Spectacular Radio, our shows, part of the Spidey Dude Vault series. We got also Amazing Spider-Man Classic Season 1, part of that series too. And then Season 2 of that show was with Hobby and Jack Trujillo. We got the Sal Buscema Era podcast, a new podcast that just dropped. The new audio version of the podcast dropped today. So you got to check out the latest episode as of this recording. And Voices from the Eerie Gargoyles podcast just had their latest episode drop this past Friday. And of course, we got Books of X, our Patreon first show, starring me and Neil Bogenreiter. And that will be going now officially Patreon first. So thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And we'll see you next time. Or we'll see you next time. And of course, we get started with Kelly McDaniel. Hello, Kelly.
Are you okay?
This story broke my brain. Let's just put it that way.
Well, it broke everyone's brain. But yeah, we're definitely not leaving. We haven't started yet. I know you want to run. I know you want to run, but
it is the best of times.
Can't do that. We've promised this. We have talked about it since the very beginning. People have wanted our opinions and wanted us to do this episode so badly. And here we are.
So tell everybody at home, what are we covering tonight?
You still can't speak, right? We are going over Spider-Verse. We are calling it part 1 of 2. I know last episode I did state we would go over all of it. Obviously not, because for some reason my brain decided, no, it ends at issue 12. No, it doesn't. And we do have Team Up that we have to discuss in part 2, thank God.
It's our palate cleanser for the rest of the stuff.
Thank God. But yeah, so we're going to go over issues 8 through 12 of Amazing Spider-Man Volume 3 from 2014. And but as we want to hold on before we go into it, we do need to kind of bring up some housekeeping and some news and of course our history. So as stated in housekeeping, my brain forgot that this goes until Amazing Spider-Man Volume 3, number 15. So my bad. Just very much wishful thinking.
We wanted this to be one episode, but when we got to looking at the scope of this event, we couldn't make it one episode.
Well, no. I never intended on going past 5 issues. I just was hoping it was only 5 issues. I forgot. I wanted to forget. Technically, all of May's part of the story probably only equals 5 issues, but
Yeah, it's true.
So, I'm going to let you start with news.
All right, so there is some news coming out of San Diego Comic-Con. We're recording this the Sunday, the final day of the convention. When the audio edition comes out, obviously, it'll have long passed. But we always want to support our friends Tom, Ron, Sal Buscema, and Pat. Tom and Pat have finally had their miniseries collaboration announced at this weekend's San Diego Comic-Con 2023. Coming this November, the dynamic duo are telling an untold tale of the original Secret Wars storyline from 1984. So be sure to pre-order this when you can. Reserve your copy at the comic shop so that way you know you're getting your copy. And if you miss it, you can always also purchase it through Comixology. I will include, after the show, a link down in the description And I will also make sure that link is also included with the audio edition. So if you're listening to the audio edition, it'll be in that description box. So that is all the news that came out that's pertinent to our show. I am planning a San Diego wrap up, possibly this next week. But just like, share, and subscribe to the channel so that way you can keep up with everything, especially with the fact that for the audio listener, we had to delay this episode several times because of technical issues. So hopefully we don't have any of those for the rest of the episode. Fingers crossed. But to jump to the history portion of our episode, so there's.
Do we want to start? All right, we're going to preface before we go into the history and then go into, our breakdowns of the issues and our reviews. I want to make sure that this is very clear. We are not here to bash anybody. We are giving this, as much of positivity as we possibly can. It is hard, and we will criticize fairly, but we're going to criticize the work. We're not tearing down creators. We're not going to take cheap shots unless it's funny and factual. And as we go on, you'll see there was a lot that I kind of had to punch up the explanations and punch up the script to even make it make sense story-wise. And we'll talk about that. And we'll talk about the fact that, unfortunately, this is not the best series. We know this. It's got a lot of errors, including it not being the first multiverse event of Marvel's history. And with that, I will go to Zach.
Okay, so I'm going to point this out for the sake of completionism. All right, completionistism, as I wrote it. It's not a word, but I'm going to roll with it. As an oral history of the Spider-Girl series and character, I feel it's our duty to remind you that the issues 10 and 11 of the first series were supposed to be taking place in the history of Earth 982, where similar circumstances to Earth 616 mirror one another. That's foreshadowing. Just want to point that out. Meanwhile, as a concept,
doing that a lot. Sorry, we'll be doing that a lot. asking you to hold on to things for later. Sorry. All right, keep going.
You're good. As a concept, Spider-Man meeting an alternate version of himself wasn't new. Spider-Man Meets 2099. Spider-Man 2099 came out on November 15th of 95. This was written by Peter David with art by Rick Leonardi and Al Williamson on the inks. Our friend Al from Spider-Girl. 2099 at the time was considered an alternate future, much like Earth 982 of the 616. But this story was the first time we saw an event of two Spider-Men of two universes teaming up. And no, Ben Reilly as Scarlet Spider does not count. This is two different universes, two Spider-Men, right? Later in other media, on January 31st, 1998, the two-part finale of Spider-Man the Animated Series was released, written by John Semper,
Look, we would not be giving Semper any credit unless credit is due. I promise you.
This is absolutely true. The story titled I Really, Really Hate Clones and Farewell Spider-Man had Spider-Man of the Animated Series team up with 5 different versions of himself. A powerless one, the one supposedly of our Earth, so Christopher Daniel Barnes himself. One who wore the 1990s Spider-Man armor that had all the success in the world. A Spider-Ock who got Otto Octavius's tentacles.
Sorry. I'm really not being snarky for snark's sake. I promise. I promise.
A 6-armed Spidey who mutated into Man Spider, which is a reference to season 2 of the show. And Ben Reilly as the Scarlet Spider, fighting Spider Carnage, which was not Ben Reilly, but Peter Parker. In the story, the group has to stop Spider Carnage from destroying all of reality, and nothing will ever be the same if not. Because of this specific story beat, John Semper has consistently attempted unsuccessfully, I would might add, to take credit for such a story in Spider-Man. And then we flash forward to September 9th, 2010. A video game was released in North America for the Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, Nintendo Wii, PC, and later the PC release was later, and Nintendo DS, called Shattered Dimensions. This was notable for bringing 4 Spider-Men together: Amazing, Ultimate, Noir, and 2099 to fight Mysterio to save the multiverse. The game was notable for bringing the 4 Spider-Man voice actors together for the very first time. You had Amazing was done by Neil Patrick Harris of the MTV series. Ultimate was done by Josh Keaton of Spectacular Spider-Man, kind of ironic. Noir was done by Christopher Daniel Barnes of the 90s animated series, and 2099 Dan Gilvizian of Spider-Man and his amazing friends from the 1980s. The multiversal event needed to occur to have multiple Spider-Men together. The game was written by Dan Slott, along with Mark Hoffmeyer. The sequel was released in 2011 called Edge of Time, that had 2 Spideys. 2099 was voiced by Christopher Daniel Barnes, and Amazing was voiced by Josh Keaton. But that was not written by Dan Slott. That was written by Peter David. As we mentioned in the last episode, in 2011, Roger Stern brought The American Dream into a story with 4 other Captain Americas, as we covered in the last episode. And finally, in 2012, Spider-Man brought the Spider-Man of Earth 616 and the Spider-Man Miles Morales of Earth 1610 together for the first time, thanks to, once again, Mysterio. So when this was announced, this was a multi-marketing bonanza campaign. Marvel pushed this thing insanely hard. From releasing a mobile game that had all the Spider characters, including April and Mayday, to a 4-part episode of the Disney XD show Ultimate Spider-Man, where we notably had a gender-swap Spider-Girl named Petra Parker, not Peter Parker. So this is, again, not the first time we've seen these type of things. The origins of the story, in terms of the story part, were seeded by Slott during Superior Spider-Man. During the 2099 storyline, we see a time loop created. And there was an editor's note at the time saying that we would see this story later. I feel like I need to remind people that with the double shipping of ASM, these stories are planned out in terms of plot far more in advance thanks to that double shipping method. This started with a thrice a month release and then continued on. Superior ended with Peter Parker becoming the real Superior Spider-Man. And this was originally going to be a Superior Spider-Man story, with Peter from the not-too-distant past contrasting the Spock era. But it was pushed back when Marvel wanted to have Peter return as the one true Spider-Man. Clone Saga reference. So, to that launch of Volume 3. Volume 3 came out around the time of Amazing Spider-Man 2, so corporate synergy being what it is, they had to have Peter Parker back in the suit. Silk was introduced as a part of the original Sin crossover event that was a part of issue 4 of this volume, and Peter is horny for her because reasons. So, with that, we now get to the breakdown. I'm going to turn this over to Kelly.
I'm now you've broken my brain because you were just like 4 reasons on the Cindy simping.
Okay. So
look, just so y'all know, it's disgusting and sexist.
I knew I was just teeing you up for that because I knew you were going to have something to say.
Well, I don't want to bring it up, but if we have to bring up the whole situation that was happening before we get into ASM 8, even though I mostly focus on 6 pages of that issue, Cindy had just debuted a few issues earlier. Is that correct? Like, she's pretty new. Yeah, and she this is before her origin was fixed.
Yeah, this was she came in issue 4 of volume 3 was her first.
Okay, cool. So 4 issues prior, she had come in, and we find out that she was living in a bunker, and her pheromones make Peter horny.
They can't keep off of each other, like literally.
Yeah, because, Asian bride held in captivity most of her life. Totally appropriate. Hi. Sorry.
We're trying our best to be.
We are trying very hard.
But when
But
there's things that need to be called out, we will call it out.
well, when she's being called the bride in Spider-Verse, I'm gonna bring it up.
Yeah.
Also, her first costume, where it looks like bondage, toilet paper, etc., is disgusting.
I don't know how
Dan
that
Slott, I
passed.
see you.
I don't know how that passed editorial.
I do.
I mean, I do, but like, because I mean, we talked
I
about
mean,
certain
we've
editors,
and
senior
we've also
editors.
and we've also talked about what's currently going on in comics and what they thought was okay. Because again, and this is the first time I think on Make Mine Mayday I'm going to get truly, truly bitter and snarky here, but it is a circle jerk of a bunch of men in their boys' club not looking at the bigger picture of what they're actually putting out and what it actually, the context of what it actually means.
Yes.
And it is disgusting. So, obviously, as you can tell, it's been almost 10 years. Nothing has changed. And with that,
All
let's
right,
get
Kayla.
into what they chose to do to Mayday. Yeah, I really tried to be super positive here. Thanks for bringing that up. If you hadn't brought it up, I wasn't going to bring it up. But here we are. This is how we start.
This issue is hard for us to cover, and we will get into it. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah. We'll get into it. So, we're going to do a little bit of a weird thing here. We're going to break down issue 8, review it, and then Zach is going to take 9 and 10, break them down together, and we'll review that. And then I'll break down 11 and 12, and we'll review that. This is mostly so that way we can try to keep things balanced time-wise, because again, after these 6 issues in issue 8 that we focus on, May is not the main character. All right, so we just focus on her and her story. And of course, Benji, since that's a part of her story, but we really don't focus on too much else. And that's just because look at our show name, Make Mine Mayday. We're only going to focus on her story. And with that, I get to start reading my stuff now. All right, so cover date. So it's Amazing Spider-Man Volume 3, number 8. Cover date is December 2014. On sale date, October 22nd, 2014. Almost 6 years to the date that we got What If 105. Just a fact to bring up here. All right. And believe me, I'm going to continue to point little things out. Cover price was $3.99. The page count was 28 pages with 19 pages of actual story. The editor was Nick Lowe. Cover credits: penciler Giuseppe Chemicoli, inker Cam Smith, and then it just has Fabella as the color for the cover. We're going to go over only the 6-page B story called My Brother's Keeper. Dan Slott as writer, Humberto Ramos on pencils, Victor Olazaba on inks, Edgar Delgado on colors, Chris Elapolitos letterer. Hopefully I pronounced those correctly. If I didn't, I apologize. I did try. All right, so who wrote that? Was that you, Zach, or was that Neil?
Wrote what?
Are we not going to talk about Anna Maria Marconi?
Oh, that was me. That was me. Yeah, that was my joke.
Yeah, no, we're not talking about it.
Okay. I don't have the Google Doc.
Good.
Yeah, no.
Okay, don't hijack my breakdowns.
My bad. I'm
with
sorry.
Your notes. At least color code it so I know.
I meant to put a highlight on it. That was my bad. I apologize.
Okay. Anyway, so we're only going to go over the B story. We're not going to go over the main story, although I will bring up the fact that the main story is most of this issue. So again, going off this cover to start off with, even though the main story is the team up with Miss Marvel, the cover for this is Edge of Spider-Verse. Basically, it's like focusing on the Edge of Spider-Verse story, all about Spider-Girl and her last stand. I want to make note of this cover before we deep dive into the Mayday part of the story. This is the start of Spider-Verse. This is what kicks the events off. This entire cover is focusing on the B story that, again, is only 6 pages out of 23 issues. May is in her suit, which is tattered from the fiery fight. It looks like she is fighting. It looks like she is getting up to stand and fight. And of course, the tagline, like I said, the tagline of the Amazing Spider-Man cover is Spider-Girl's Last Stand. The main story, the 14 other pages in this, is only shown in the corner of the cover page, which I think is pretty noteworthy. And again, making note of this as we discuss this issue, along with the weird page in the beginning naming every editor in person dealing with publishing for this issue, which I found odd. But of course, maybe that's just because I can't remember when that was normal in these comics, because I've never seen where the publisher is named unless it's a big event. So they clearly thought this issue kicked off a big event, and they wanted everyone who was involved to have their name on it. Think about that. So again, the main story is just a team up. It's a little romp before we get into the 6 pages that, of course, I have a feeling are going to take up most of tonight's episode. So let's get started. Forest Hills, Queen, Earth, 982. West is holding on, trying to get an inheritor, Deimos, off of Spider-Girl's neck as we see the Parker house burning and crumbling around them. Mayday is narrating as she tells us that she's the Spider-Girl. It's written like that. She is the Spider-Girl. And she's fought so hard and for so long, and she's tried her best to be a hero, but now she'd give anything to not die. Wes continues to do everything he can to get Deimos off May, telling him he'll stop him. But Deimos gets tired of Wes's futile attempts and throws him across the room, knocking him out. May internally is worried and wondering if she led this monster here to her home. Mary Jane, who's holding Benji, who at least in this panel looks like to be about the right age as we saw him, again, making notes about this for later because I will continue to bring up Benji's age in all of this. Mary Jane calls out to Peter, whose bionic leg looks to be crushed from the beginning of the onslaught by Deimos. He tells Mary Jane, and this is where I'm proceeding to punch up the panel script just a bit. I'll continue to do this even more as we keep going. That he's got to help Mayday. So even with his busted bionic leg, he's got to be better than okay. He needs to be amazing. Literally, this dialogue is so clunky. But, again, I do understand this is 6 pages. They only had 6 pages to work with, so it's not a dig yet. Because, we know that it could be a lot worse, especially in today's writing environment. But the dialogue is very clunky here and will continue to be so. It's like the creative team assumed you knew everything and everyone and could read their minds. The story wasn't written for people who didn't know their spider history or multiverse knowledge. And I just want to make sure that that's clear. Deimos is impressed by Peter's gumption, and May's narration reminds us that even though her dad is tired, hurt, and missing a leg, he can still do the impossible. As Peter fights Deimos, Deimos tells him his real intention of coming here. It wasn't to eat just Spider-Girl. I'm guessing this was said to them off panel. He's there to eat Peter, May, and Benji, who in one panel has no hair, and then in another one has a head full of hair, and he both gets slightly smaller every time he's drawn. Just gonna keep mentioning it.
The incredible shrinking Benji.
So anyway, Peter can sense the threat Deimos is and tells Mary Jane to run, get the kids to safety, and he tells her how much he loves her. Mary Jane runs to May and tells her to get up quickly, like her throat wasn't just almost crushed by Deimos earlier. And she tells Mayday not to worry about Wes or her dad. What? And that she's got to get her brother to safety, that he's her responsibility now. Okay. And Mary Jane runs back to Peter as Mayday runs out with Benji, and we hear Mary Jane scream as the house seemingly implodes, which again, I know 6 pages, and I know this was just to further plot, but this was the worst out-of-character dialogue for both characters, and we'll get into that in our reviews, but it makes me feel really icky. This entire scene is just icky. So another portal opens. Something Mayday mentions happens again off panel with Deimos, or had again happened with Deimos off panel. And the last stand, Spider-Man comes walking out with Spider-Man UK, telling May and Benji to come with them if they want to live. They advise they are spiders from other dimensions and they are here to help. Great, so help, May asks. Don't just stand there. Let's help my dad. But Benji seemingly gets smaller here, though his head doesn't. Like, his head is normal size and his body is tiny. I just want to point that out. So again, just mentioning it. Sadly, according to Last Stand's readings, only 2 spider totems are here, May and Baby Ben. May, with brown eyes, again pointing stuff out for later, clutches Benji and asks if that means her father is gone. Deimos, seen in the fiery rubble of the house, calls out that Peter's been consumed and tells us his flavor profile, but I'm not getting into that bullshit. The other spiders seem remorseful that they got there too late, but there's no more time. They need to leave to save May and Benji. Deimos seems to just stand there, basically. You know, as much as he was trying to eat 3 people, after eating 1, he's just like, all right, whatever, bye. And, you know, warns he'll find them and consume them one way or another. May clutches to the ever-shrinking Benji and vows she's saving her brother. She'll avenge her family by breaking every vow she's ever been taught, by denouncing every value her father ever held and taught her. She will kill Deimos, and Deimos tells her that she's more than welcome to try. To be continued in Spider-Verse. So let's chat, Zach. What are your thoughts?
That last line of May's kills me every time I read it because it's antithetical to everything that, if you've read Spider-Girl like we have from the beginning, it don't work. I'll explain that in a second. Firstly, you've mentioned the things about the artwork. This artwork suffers from what I like to call deadline Ramos. Humberto Ramos, when he has time to devote to the craft, can provide great artwork. But this is not it. It felt like with Slott and Ramos working together, he was constantly rushing. Good example. Spider Island.
Hey. We've all seen that Disney Plus episode, right? Where a certain someone literally thinks it's okay to spend all of his time on Twitter, our social media, which of course we said we would mention and bring up in previous episodes, and we probably need to bring it up here. Yeah. But maybe things would be written better and feel more concise if it had more than one draft.
Yeah,
because maybe someone's spending too much time on the internet.
Examples here in my notes. During San Diego 2011, like, he had to cut his floor time short in Artist Alley for commissions and such to go work on pages because the pages were behind schedule because they shifted everything around.
I'm sorry. As much as I will give Ramos criticism for criticism, when it's appropriate, I don't think the issue of time is his fault when it comes to Slott.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Marvel 616 on Disney Plus. Part of that I know was played up for laughs, but there's a ton of truth to it. Otherwise, they wouldn't have had it.
I love the fact that it felt like they thought they were in on the joke, and it's like, I don't think you realize this shows the problem.
Yeah.
It's not funny. It wasn't jokey. This probably has way too more truth to it than it should have.
Yeah, and frankly, it's embarrassing. If I was Dan Slott, I would be embarrassed by that entire thing.
Well, because it comes off like he doesn't take his job seriously.
Exactly. And to me, it shows the rushing and the being behind when you put the hierarchy out, right? Because a lot of his artwork feels rushed, in my opinion, throughout the entire story. But it really does show for me when he's working with Ramos more than others. Because if you look at Ramos on other books, you look at Ramos even with Nick Spencer on a similar schedule, I felt like the artwork was far tighter with Spencer and Ramos on Spider-Man. Even Paul Jenkins and Ramos on Spider-Man. I mean, before his style evolved, I'm like, it just seems to be a specific problem when he's working specifically with Slott. Narratively, from a structural standpoint, this is meant to disorient you, to try to put you in the shoes of Mayday. And so as a result of this, you have this structure that feels...
You're giving this way too much credit.
I know I am. I know I am. But I'm trying... This is me trying to be legitimately fair.
Which is, yes, and that's... you are trying to make sense of this in the best way possible, which is entirely... I wouldn't necessarily call it fair, because I do it too, where you're trying to make sense of everything and you're trying to make it fit. The thing is, we're basically doing what most storytellers would already give you because they actually know how to write a story. Yes. What? Sorry. But the thing is that we're giving the team too much credit by connecting those dots.
Right.
Period. This is the first time that we've seen May since early 2011.
Yes. It's been 3 years in timeline terms. Three actually.
Almost 4.
Yeah, almost 4.
And this was not the greatest thing, especially too leading up to this, when they first announced and first showed off the cover and showed how Mayday was the focus and how she's going to kick off the Spider-Verse. Slott was very boastful, very egotistical, and proud that he was bringing Spider-Girl back to the masses and how he was doing such a good favor to all the strong fans of Spider-Girl and how, how much he admired them and all this other stuff, while also subtly digging at us and making fun of us for how the fans had carried Spider-Girl over the years.
Yeah. I mean,
and this issue was a slap in the face from all of that. I gave him the benefit of the doubt. And we brought sorry.
No, you're good. I mean, we brought and we'll talk about this a little bit more when we get into like the reaction over this. In terms of, again, from the narrative standpoint, this is all his lost moment, right? Because he wants to make you invested in Mayday.
No, he doesn't. That's the point.
But the problem is you can't start that story there because, again, going back to what you just said, we hadn't seen this character in 3 years. This is not a character that, while there was a lot of mass people that read those digests and stuff like that, as we covered on this show, like the general, your usual comic fans, right? They okay, Mayday's back. It's the thing is none of the stakes that are presented here is earned. It's just there.
So yeah, while the stakes are not, there were little seeds and stuff like that with other things that we had saw in previous issues leading up to this. This is the first prelude, though. This is the official prelude. He's expecting, you already know what's going on. And you already know that the Inheritors are back and they're doing this. This was the first time to really, essentially, this was more of the shock value. We're going to kill a character. Who can we kill? We'll kill a Peter. We'll kill May's dad. And look at how shocking that is. Not understanding that the dynamics that he just created ultimately destroy what makes 982. But I also think too, Slott did know. And at this time, because now he'll pretend that, he wasn't aware. Just like he'll pretend that he's not aware, of how fetish-y Silk was in the beginning. He was aware. He's a grown man. He was aware.
Yeah, and I know people.
I'm sorry. I don't like the whole. Oh, he's just a nerd.
He
He's just one of
apologized.
us. I don't give a shit. I'm sorry, and I'm gonna curse a lot. I'm gonna try my best to keep it. This is the stuff where, when I tell you someone is a sexist man-child, I mean it, and I mean it because look at the work. Look at this work. Again, this was done. This did May dirty. This did the world dirty. This, and it's not just here's these 6 issues. We have to make this punch so we can get this plot moving forward. Dirty. This could have been done with anybody. This could have been done with any other thing.
This wasn't fridging Mayday, but this was fridging the entire universe of Mayday. And
it's not fridging. I'm gonna fight you on that. That's not. This is.
Well,
not
I mean,
this
in
is
terms
nothing like fridging.
Okay.
No,
well,
it's not. It's not. We're gonna keep fridging the way fridging is. Miss Marvel was fridged. This is not fridging. Peter did not get fridged. This is different. This was done with the intentional gut punch to, as we'll see towards the end, being used to make May a woman, which was bullshit. And they clearly didn't know that at the time. This was just to cause chaos and shock and awe. And it's done in a way that, nobody cared. I mean, Zach, I don't know if you're done. I keep interrupting you, so I apologize. But we'll
no,
go
I'm not done. I've got several other points I was going to break, and mainly it was to dovetail for some of the thing you were saying. You talk about how there was seeds planted. They killed off the Amazing Friends universe with freaking Miss Lion howling over her family essentially being brutally slaughtered. You brought up during your review the final line. It's the most egregious bit in this. One of the most egregious bits in this entire issue.
I haven't brought that up. Just like I haven't brought up the out of character stuff. I've made points to it. I haven't brought it up yet. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Like I might need to bring up what my review is before we bring up your other points.
Okay, that's fine.
Just talk wise. So that's kind of why I'm sitting here. I'm wondering. I'm like, should I just go through mine and then
go ahead and go through yours, and I'll pepper mine. What I would my thoughts on it as you go. So.
Okay. So again, oh well, did I not bring it up? Hold on. Where am I? What the heck? Did you erase my notes? You erased my notes.
I don't think I did.
Yeah, no, I don't. They're not here.
Okay, let me look at the.
It's fine. It's fine. We're just gonna go into it. I mean, I've already talked about it, but you totally erased my notes. Yay. But yeah, no. So it's fine. But yeah. So to bring up going back to the icky part, where Mary Jane is very out of character. Yes. Should she care about her children getting out? Yes. To the point of caring about the baby, she doesn't care that the fact May almost got crushed to death. Not cool. The fact that she doesn't seem to care about Wes at all. Not cool. Her running back in to save Peter, yes, that's fine. But the clunky dialogue of that going, no, save your brother. This is what you need to do. That's not Mary Jane. And so I don't. It comes off really bad. But again, look at who's writing. Especially look at who's writing Mary Jane. Someone he notoriously hates as a character. To the point that, he routinely thinks it's funny to bring up the Emma Stone SNL skit calling Mary Jane a skank. So, that also came off as not that great because that was around the same time this was happening, I believe. Amazing Spider-Man 2 was coming out around the same time.
Yeah, it actually was. Yeah, that was why Peter's in the costume again.
Yeah. And so again, the dialogue is clunky and weird. May, we get this big, huge cover of May looking like she's going to fight to her last breath. I fully thought this was going to be about her dying, saving her universe, or her universe getting destroyed, because of the way that, the lead up had been. And you saw her on the cover. And no, she runs away. That's not May. That's not May at all. And then you add in, like I said, the whole thing is disgusting. You add in that last line about, I vow to throw all the things I learned. I'm going to kill you. What in the 13-year-old boy who just took their first creative writing shop class, like summer school lesson at a church in the middle of nowhere, is this? I used to write fan fiction when I was a preteen.
Yeah.
I wrote things similar to that as a preteen.
Yep.
For free. I didn't get paid to write that shit.
Preach, sister. I was doing the same thing.
But that's what I'm saying is, think about does that just roll off the tongue to you? No. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
I literally read it out loud to myself to see if saying it out loud made it better. And as I put in my notes, it's like you're doing an animated series and you're being voice directed by Bill Shatner. The way the lines delivered and the way the bubbles are, you have like all these unnecessary pauses for dramatic effect. I'm like, well, it's just bad.
And we don't see anything previously. And I even had to go back to see, do we ever see where Deimos pops out in front of the house? No. So we start off like this. So essentially we can assume, all right, Wes is there. Maybe they were having a family dinner. Maybe this was Wes finally meeting the parents. Even though they totally were watching them kiss out on the porch in that in Spider-Girl The End.
Yeah.
But the thing is this is not friendly. It's not new reader friendly. It's not even, Amazing Spider-Man only friendly. It's not, especially because this was hot off the heels of Superior Spider-Man, which a lot of fans got into Superior Spider-Man from the beginning, didn't really know the history, definitely didn't know Mayday or the multiverse. This is not friendly to them, which is what I said earlier. If you don't know your spider knowledge and your spider history, you're not going to understand anything at all. You probably don't even know who Wes is at the beginning. And it's a good full page before you ever get Wes's name. And she goes, Wes, my boyfriend. Whatever. The way that she is written, the way May is written is so wooden and is so not her. Yes. Oh, okay. It needs to be narrated by her because, she narrated her original series. But where is this May? Where is this her gumption? Where is her unwillingness to give up? She would have never, she would have pushed her mother and her brother out of that house. She wouldn't have left that house.
Well, yeah, I mean,
you know what I mean? None of this makes sense.
The Mayday of Season of the Serpent, when she's got the entire weight of the world on her shoulders and she's fighting to until her very dying breath. She's not, again, like you say, she's not one that's going to turn tail and run away. And secondly, she does believe that everybody can be saved, even the most irredeemable people.
Now, she did just watch her entire house blow up. She does not know her mom is alive. She doesn't know Wes is alive.
Right.
Which, oops, sorry, spoilers. Who cares? This thing is trash. But she just saw Peter's dead body being held by Deimos.
And
I get her saying, I'm gonna kill you. That's cool. I don't care about that. That doesn't bother me as much. It's the whole, I vow to destroy everything I've learned. Who says that?
Nobody.
That's my thing. It just doesn't come off organic. It doesn't come off. It literally takes you out of the scene that should be so destructive in a good way. It should be emotionally destructive to you as the reader, to you as the fan. That shit took me out because it is wooden. It is a 12-year-old writing a fan fiction or a role play on pro boards. Holler to anybody that was on writing X-Men role play on pro boards. Yes, I was 12. I'm sorry. But yeah, no. So again, this is my thing. It's this is trash. He couldn't even he set all of this up to be such an amazing kickoff. The marketing, like, I'll give Slott credit. He wants to be Stan Lee so damn bad. He's good at trying to showboat and making promises that he can't keep. About which, of course, no offense to Stan Lee, because he at least also could put money where his mouth was most of the time. Slott can't. But the issue is, the Slott led this up. Slott got all his fanboys riled up. So then, of course, if anybody said anything about being nervous about somebody else taking the reins of Spider-Girl for the first time in 16 years, essentially,
Yeah.
for this story, which was a big deal, gets them where they're running them off the internet. They're sitting there, they're trying to swap them, because you can't dare say a bad thing about Dan Slott on the internet, which is something that happened to me. And all I did was just say I was worried.
I mean,
my worries were validated in this issue.
Same here. This isn't a unique story for me, because it was the first time that I covered a Spider-Girl story in terms of podcasting that was brand new. And I remember seeing the advertisers, the advertisements and all the build up and all the lead up, and people are going, "Oh, aren't you excited that you're?" No, I'm nervous. And every time, unfortunately, one of my favorite characters has been written by this current editorial team and or writing staff, I have been disappointed. And this was the beginning of that for me. I went back and listened to the old Crawlspace episode, just so that way I could remember, okay, what points did I make? Are the points the same? Is my opinions the same? Because I've read this several times over the last couple of weeks. And nothing changed. I hoped that coming at it with a fresh set of eyes, I would have a bit of a different perspective. But when it comes to Spider-Girl, everything was just made worse. This shock and awe tactic with the inheritors, other writers have done well with it. Moreland's first story was a shock and awe story, but Moreland, in my opinion, only works if he's a one and done guy. Every time they've brought him back ever since, and now adding all this extended backstory and all these family members that we never seen before until this story, diluted the story, diluted the character, and frankly make it to where I could go forever never seeing Moreland show up in another Spider-Man story, and I'm good. You had, going back to what you were saying, Slott's Twitter feed, you almost had to read Slott's Twitter feed as a supplemental piece.
And you remember the heyday of that? How do you not know? Sorry.
I mean, it's.
I'm sorry. It's like, as we're talking about it, I'm getting angry all over again, and we're going back to the. Let's be fair. This guy was an effing dick. I do think he's mellowed out. Yes, he has apologized for some of his behavior.
Mm-hmm.
However, before this issue, and the reason why I was so worried was from Superior Spider-Man, from the disgustingness from that scene with Ock in Peter's body on Mary Jane. Just in general, of using Peter's body and getting into relationships in Peter's body when it is not his body, because that is taking all of Peter's bodily autonomy away.
Yeah,
and I will liken it to DC Comics and the Tarantula and Dick Grayson. Yeah, I literally am. It is disgusting in that way. Peter was violated that entire time, and it was disgusting. It hurt me in a way, especially as a young 20-something female, who was constantly dealing with similar situations, not necessarily in the same way, but where people think your body is an object and you are not a person. And that is the way I always took that take of Superior Spider-Man, and I thought it was disgusting that he would defend it, and he still does, and it is disgusting to me.
Yeah. And
So,
also the
yeah.
gleeful nature of the deaths in all of this build, including in this issue.
Oh, he was so happy about that. And he almost practically was egging us, like gloating about it, specifically to Spider-Girl fans after this issue came out about Peter being dead. And that was so
I remember there
gross.
was I think he had actually made it to San Diego Comic-Con in this year. I didn't get that deep into doing the research on it, but I remember it may have been New York Comic-Con, one or the other. Just acting so, he's dead. And it's like, for fans of these stories, this feeling of there's a feeling of hopelessness that permeates if you are a fan of all these characters that died. And I think it's also hilarious that the moment he's no longer a part of like the main books and he gets a chance to write Spider-Man again, what's the first thing he does? Crafts a story to try to fix all the stuff about this. And I'm like, it's a shock jock mentality. It's a Howard Stern in the 90s mentality.
Well, okay. Oh, well, you know what? You want to bring that up? What kind of jokes does Howard Stern like to bring up? Like, what kind of sense of humor is it?
It's sophomore.
It's really sexist. It's really disgusting.
Extremely.
And yeah, no, I would definitely equate that to Dan Slott. But yeah, no, and I mean, I don't know, like we're kind of spinning our gears on this. Again, we didn't want to like have this be a total Slott bash fest. But here's Neil.
Hi. I was asking Kelly if I could hop in to say a few words about it, just because I have skin in the race. So you mentioned it earlier, but I have a few more technical things. You mentioned earlier that like this is very new reader unfriendly to May. You were right on the money. Like it just kind of throws you. It assumes that you have read up until 2009.
Yes, and if you hadn't, you're stupid. If you hadn't, we don't want you as a fan. I'm like, this is why I'm getting angry, and it's because I'm literally getting like flashbacks.
I was about to say this is like
PTSD flashbacks of Twitter in 2014 at the height of Dan Slott's bullshit.
And this is I know I get flack for being the color guy. Edgar Delgado's colors I actually think are really good. I think that Ramos's lines and Olazaba's inks don't really do those colors justice, but I think Delgado kind of carries the entire 6 pages on his back.
Well, because it's such a also if you read the main story, like the Ms. Marvel story, speaking of Ms. Marvel,
yeah, doesn't this feel a little
time is a flat circle?
Doesn't this feel like, honestly, doesn't this feel a little morbid? Like we're literally talking about the nightmare that this starts for Mayday, because they essentially break this character, they break this world, and it cannot be fixed. I have likened this to the line by Lady Gaga in the Telephone music video about the mirror. Like, you can break the mirror, but there's always going to be cracks in that MFing reflection.
It's Pandora's box as far as death is concerned.
Well, that's what I'm saying. But it's weird. You know what I mean? It's weird because the thing is now we know. Obviously, Miss Marvel did not die. Now here in 2023, she didn't technically stay dead for very long. Instead, she's now looking like a 23-year-old white woman with a tan and a very anti-Muslim silk robe when she was cloned.
Thanks, Kubert.
For X-Men, and now as a mutant.
Zach, we'll talk about that, Zach.
We'll talk about that. But again, like it's very weirdly strange that we have one team up as a main story and then 6 pages of
Event set
egotistical
up as
a story edited by Nick Lowe destroying a female character who is very important to Marvel's history. And now in 2023, we also have Nick Lowe editing an issue that also destroys a very important female character for Marvel's history.
I wanted to kind of also point this out. But no, you're fine. I was rereading this just because I was planning on jumping and I didn't plan on running tech support, but here I am now. But reading through it felt almost pedestrian how Peter was killed off, or MC2 Peter was killed off. Like I say that as in like we've gotten so used to the shocking death.
Wait. It was pedestrian, but he goes, no, I have to be better than okay. I have to be amazing.
No, I mean, as in
Crunch.
like the atmosphere of death. Like we've seen so many like, look at this shocking death. The Marvel universe is going to explode. Miss Marvel's dead.
But that's the thing though, is this issue, no point in time they actually kept this death under wraps. And like I said, they almost gave you a fake out because you almost would assume Mayday was going to die. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, everybody, when we saw that cover, I remember in the community, it was not good. And
yeah, and how dare I as a 23-year-old say, I really hope you're not killing her off, and literally getting threats of swatting by his fanboys.
And also,
we want to talk about how he gets bullied on the internet. Okay.
Also, I do feel like we have to point out here.
Sorry, I'm still pot meat kettle. The people that protest too much tend to be the ones who cause the most trouble.
But like when I say that Peter's death felt more pedestrian, it's more like I went in expecting to be angry at the end of it, like I was back in 2014, and I just felt like, oh, well, that happened. Okay, who's next?
The emotional
I'm so used to death.
Well, I mean, it's events like this that cheapened death to the point where you become this jaded individual where we're like, oh yeah. I also want to point out, talking about like Kelly's reaction, the reaction of the fandom, since we are the oral history now of this Spider-Girl fandom, it was not good. In fact, there was even criticisms leveled at Slott by individuals that
were valid and
were very valid.
They got a target put on their back, even by Marvel themselves, a bad reputation, all because they justly criticized stuff like this by Slott.
And
think about that, because I mean, like, we could rip this all off and just say there's a lot of things that, crawl space will love to do in Marvel that Marvel won't let them do because of the quote unquote negative nature, when the only negative person in that entire discussion and discourse was Slott.
Yeah. I mean, and even,
because I'm sorry, why did he like want death on somebody who is sick and just didn't like his issue in Comics Board? Does anybody remember that? I do.
Well, whenever he told a fan to go F himself.
Yeah. And then how dare you tell me something wrong? Sorry, I'm really angry now.
Well, this okay. Is what that's what people come for.
Well, it's not. Hang on.
I tried my best, and when we go forward, we're gonna wipe this whole slate clean. I knew this was gonna happen, and I tried my best. But the thing is again, and this is the thing that always gets me, especially when we talk about this stuff. And I understand this was 10 years ago. I would hope everybody has grown up a little bit. That's fair. But the thing is we can criticize, or like we are not allowed to criticize, essentially. Sorry. So we're not allowed to criticize, but Slott can tell people to go kill themselves. Slott can go tell people, basically twist what people are saying to make it all about himself, and how, his life is just being so harassed and ruined. And essentially for what purpose? Like, because the thing is like, I'm literally telling you, hey, I could have written those 6 issues a lot better. Zach could have, Neil could have, you guys who are listening could have. And I'm not meaning that in a mean way. We are not hired by Marvel. We didn't go into that field. We didn't blackmail somebody into getting an internship.
Who that person happens to be the co-creator of this character.
That he then did this to, and then he makes you wonder: was this the intention? Like, was the torture porn intentional?
You know, and again, look, I'm just going to say it. Even, and I'm not going to go into like what he actually said, but even Ron Frenz had some very pointed comments towards Slott about this story. And I can tell you from the conversations I had with him around the time, they weren't happy. They weren't. They were upset. And we'll talk about that more in the next episode.
I feel like we need a Patreon exclusive of what me and Neil figured out. It was a really good joke.
I know what you're talking about.
Oh boy.
There was a line that was real good, and we figured it out. It was
we did some bona fide Holmes and Watson tier detective work, and we need to publish that so we can get credit for
it. You know what?
All I'm gonna say is I believe this was with was it Three Rivers?
Yes.
It was was it Kayfabe?
I think so.
Okay. Go back to a podcast with Ron Frenz at Three Rivers Comic Convention with Kayfabe.
Yeah.
And just listen. It's great. It's real great.
It's Ron Unfiltered. Let's just put it that way. It's the best way of describing it is Ron Unfiltered. Maybe one day, Ron, I know you're listening, and I'm not being pretentious when I say that.
Look, I want everyone to be nice, and I don't want to cause anything, but also, again, I don't think this was a respectful thing to do to Mayday. I don't think that this was respectful to the story. And, honestly, it gets worse from here, story-wise. Somehow.
Wait, there's more. And so let's put the button on it.
Yeah. Because we like I said, I knew this was going to take up a lot of time. So Neil, you are welcome to hang out unless you want to stay as the man behind the camera.
I can do both.
Okay. All right.
I have things to say about this now.
Good.
I'm invested.
Okay. You are more than welcome to continue to join us.
So as Kelly mentioned earlier, I'm going to do the recaps of 9 and 10.
Also, too, we're letting Neil join because misery loves company.
There's not enough alcohol for us to have, this much misery.
I'm sober.
I can't drink.
I wasn't going to do this.
Zach, I can't drink anymore. Like, health-wise, I can't.
Oh, yeah. See, no.
Oh,
I'll explain later. It's not important. Anyway.
So, all right. If you're following along in the hardcover I got at Ollie's for $9,
sweet.
Because I didn't pay full price for this thing. Full price for this hardcover, by the way.
It's either in stock trade or Ollie's. That's where everyone gets their paperbacks and hardcovers.
$34.99.
Lordy, is that a hardcover?
It is a hardcover. This is just the slip.
Oh, that's the sleeve. Okay.
Yeah. $34.99. It covers 7 through 18 and Superior 2 and 32 and 33, and then part of Free Comic Book Day 2014. So Spider-Verse Part 1, because the last part was not Part 1. It was just the prelude. Written by Dan
now
Slott.
First Strike.
Yeah. Written by Slott. Oliver Copiel is the penciler who does the inks as well as this. And in the next issue, Justin Ponsor is the colorist. Chris Alipios is the letterer. Devin Lewis and Ellie Pyle are assistant editors, with Nick Lowe as the editor, with Axel Alonso as editor-in-chief, Cosada as the chief creative officer, and Dan Buckley as the publisher. This is the exact same group that will be doing both issues. So just for the record, this issue was released on November 5th of 2015, cover dated for January 2015. So after seeing the death of Spider-Moon Man of Earth 449, we have the Inheritors show up, and we are introduced to Loom World, aka Earth 001. We meet more parts of Moreland's family, Verna Diamos, who killed 982 Peter, Moreland, and apparently Moreland has been avoiding the 616. We cut to Peter asleep, naked. Don't stare at his butt. That's literally a dialogue.
Why are you okay? I guess you have to bring it up. There's no reason to bring it up.
For reasons.
Zach just wanted to gaff.
Yeah, well. Silk is there and says that Peter should move so they don't behave like they've been behaving, but I'll digress. I'm really trying here not to go.
I'm sorry. Like, I understand. I really want to make a mail order bride joke here, but I'm not.
I made a joke about how local Silk fan relearns the character's origins and then jumps out a window.
Yeah, it
feels like an Onion article.
Anyway, Peter and Silk go on patrol. They encounter the looter who is working for Hydra. Why? We don't know. Because you demanded it, maybe. Jessica Drew and her protege, I forgot that this was even a thing, Anya Corazon, show up, as does Miguel O'Hara and Brian Braddock, Spider UK. There's a second, the first, because there's a second one, but that's completely unrelated. Mayday shows up, and just as she's about to sock one of the goons, Spider-Ham makes his first appearance in the main book. Peter, like the rest of us, is confused, and Spider UK opens a time dilation portal to another world. Mayday, but before they do that, Mayday decides to unmask to explain that she knows Peter. How? Well, apparently they're trying to insinuate that Earth 982 is the future of the 616. But we've established...
No, that's not what they're doing.
Yeah,
that wasn't what they were doing.
But the way the dialogue was written...
No, it wasn't. The way it was written is essentially... Sorry. Basically, what it's saying is, hey, I met you before. You're assuming that when May went back in time in her issues and met 616 Peter, apparently, right. That was her actually going back in time. That I don't think is what was it. That's not what this was intending. I think this was almost saying that she's actually hopped a world before. Kind of saying that she actually hopped into 616 and that the multiverse is wibbly wobbly, timey wimey.
That Spiral, instead of going back in time, Spiral was going back in time.
It was alternative hopping. Yeah.
Okay.
That's the way that is always read to me, especially when you go through other little side books in the series and you realize that that's kind of what they're insinuating, is that there has not been time travel in the Spider-Verse. It's only been multi-universe hopping. Go. Sorry. Again, you have to seriously know everything. You have to be reading everything.
Yes.
And for you to understand any of this damn dialogue. So anyway, go
also it assumes that you're interpreting it correctly.
Oh yeah, no. Yeah. And if you're not, you're not a real fan.
And if you're on Twitter,
guess I'm not a real fan. All right.
Asking legitimate questions to certain people. Anyway,
Mr. Block, how dare you? How dare you insult my intelligence?
Yeah,
for not being
I'm sorry.
How dare you tell me
you follow somebody that I don't like, and I'm going to block you.
Or you post a Mayday cosplay picture. Block.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
You remind me that
you reminded him of his failure.
You remind me of the time I crapped on KFC when it was our sponsor. Blocked.
Oh God.
That's not actually how he blocked me. I think it was something about.
I forgot about the FKFC.
Okay, incident. Hey guys. As Zach goes through, listeners who are watching live, please write down your story on how Dan Slott blocked you on the internet.
Oh God.
We have jackets.
We have jacket, or we're making jackets. So please, feel free to tell us your story.
There's a support group we're forming.
Yeah, as we break these down. So, Zach, let's get back on track and continue the chaos in the comments.
Anyway, he gets told that Moreland has a brother, and this makes Peter freak out, and they go into the portal after another team goes to rescue Kane. Kane, Ben Reilly of Earth 94, and Spider-Gwen show up to Earth 13, the home of the Captain Universe Spider-Man. At the time, for those that are wondering, Kane was a part of the New Warriors, and apparently the Inheritors crapped all over the New Warriors. So the home of Captain Universe Spider-Man, who never lost his Captain Universe powers. I wrote Omni powers, but that's not correct. Captain Spidey, as I'll refer to him as, is holding Benji and hands him off to May. May says that he is her world, all the family that she has left. We then cut to Earth 1610, aka the Ultimate Universe, before Galactus ate it, with Miles at his mother's grave and Ultimate Jessica Drew. The sister of had some pets like Puma and Silver Sable made into a feral cat for some reason. Brings her pets along, attacks. That's the end of the main part of the story. We get an epilogue, tells the story of the inheritors, and introduces you to the concept of the great web of life and destiny. They eat a bunch of spiders. The end. That's it. So we get to ASM Volume 3, Number 10, Superior Force. Same team as last time, released 2 weeks after the first issue, November 19th, 2014, cover date, January of 2015. In terms of Mayday appearances in this issue, since we're focusing on Mayday.
Well, and the baby.
And Benji.
Yeah.
They are largely background characters. Benji stays behind in Earth 13 while May goes off with this group. We have a second team who saves Miles and Jessica. The second team was formed during the Superior Spider-Man issues, which if you're reading along, predate go between issues 8 and 9.
Yeah, there's also some team ups in between, but
yeah.
I don't believe May even shows up in those because those are dealing with like there's A team and B team.
Yes.
So
yeah. So Superior Team Superior, Team Amazing. I mean, you could label it however you want. So the team that goes and saves Miles and Jessica are led by the not so superior Spider-Man, and eventually the two groups come together. Peter then splits the team to go as they go look and try to find more information. Deimos shows up, wreaks havoc, a battle occurs. He's quickly defeated, killed even. And then we have, I think, Lady Spider and 2099 are going to take him to her universe or his universe and go do an autopsy. But then as other ones show up and there's more battling that occurs, May is mad that they are getting away. They eventually get back to Earth 13. And then at the end of the issue, Otto decides that he's going to declare himself in charge, and that's the end of the issue. Most of this issue is just giant battle set pieces that jump from plot point to plot point. There's
plot
not
point
a
to
ton
plot
that
point, bringing up another spider, another universe, just to say that they did, because again, marketing was king, story fell to the wayside.
When the marketing says we're going to bring in every Spider-Man ever,
that was a mistake.
That was the mistake. And also, I rightfully will point out there was some spiders they couldn't bring up for legal reasons. AKA Spectacular and MTV Spider-Man were and Andrew Garfield.
They dodged the bullet.
They dodged the bullet of not being involved in this.
Yeah. So my notes on 9 and 10 are this is as positive as I can be, but obviously we're going to rip this to shreds again. As much as we tried, this is just terrible. But it's neat to give those early issues, like I said earlier, that connect that maybe May didn't go back in time to see her parents, but she went into early 616. And, the dimensions are all wibbly wobbly, timey wimey. It's a neat concept to use. Too bad no one else really uses it from here on out, even though it is brought up in some of the team ups in this specific Spider-Verse and never again. So I digress because I actually think it's a cool concept. It's just not used right. Also upset by how May's chest is eating her spider in the panel where she takes off her mask to say, "Hey, Peter, you know me." I don't think I need to go into boob socks again, but like costumes don't work like that. I really don't know why we need to allude to a naked body on a teenager. We're just going to go ahead and say that. It's gross. Artists stop. Spandex is not body paint. And if you fought crime, you'd want to wear a sports bra or something, supporting you in active movement. Just
almost
saying.
As if having a woman involved, like Ellie Pyle, should have been like, hey, when she looked at those pages, can we do
Kelly,
something? But
yeah,
Kelly, you'll be happy to know, Kelly, that David Nakayama has continued the trend. The newest Spider-Gwen miniseries has Gwen with boob socks.
Well, and again, I literally, like, on my last line here, I go, sorry, I won't let you people get your jollies off on Spider-Girl, but yeah, no, and I stand by that statement. If they're underage, give them a bra. Please, for the love of God.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, those And then also I need to bring up Benji keeps de-aging. I kind of do want
It's
to.
Benjamin Button.
He really is. And I also want to talk about the cult light aspect of Ham and everyone just immediately being like, "No, May, you're not alone. We're your family." Like this isn't Fast and the Furious, okay? And
Family.
Mayday, you
most
can't.
and most of the Parkers, most spiders to begin with, are not the most immediately trusting of sorts. Like, go back to everybody where they're like their actual series or actual what if issue. This is not how they act. And I'm not saying, that they wouldn't be friendly, but like, what happened to the whole concept of, oh, Spider-Man is a loner and these Spideys don't play well with others. Like, even May wasn't the most agreeable in team ups in her own world. So I just feel like that needs to be brought up here too. It feels like we're missing so much context as well because the story is rushed and things honestly are just happening because of plot and they're not organic in how they come across. Which again, 12-year-old boy who just took a creative writing course, like in a creative writing summer camp for a week, and this is their big story, which is ultimately just a Spider-Man fan fiction.
You joke, Kelly, but I was 14 or 15. I was in high school when this started coming out. God, I feel old now.
Wow.
Welcome to our world.
And this is probably the writing I would have churned out and gone, "Wow, this is deep."
But that's why I'm bringing it up because
This is
again,
epic.
again, you were a child learning how to write.
God.
Another one blackmailed their way into Marvel and is now this long-term writer, which makes zero sense when most everybody is freelance now except for him.
He gets to go to the James Bond winter cabin
Is he
every year
the
for
only
summit.
exclusive Marvel writer now?
I think so.
They can
That's
afford
interesting.
they can afford
No, it's Disney. They can't afford shit. Obviously.
No, they lost $5.5 billion, and therefore they can't afford anything now.
Yeah,
will-
no, never.
I'll say this: the plot is definitely moving this book along. Like we need to get Miles Morales into this book somehow. How do we get there? Oh, just cut to him, and then we'll bring the Inheritors to Miles.
And again, I'm sorry, y'all, that I am so snarky.
Benji's also just
I
a prop.
Well, yes,
Benji,
he is.
He is not a character.
Well,
He's
also,
a
I
plot
mean,
point.
in fairness, he's going from being, a year and a half old to a newborn at any given panel.
That said, he does have more
spoilers.
use.
A newborn that has enough chunky rolls to be mistaken for an anamorphic pig. Anyway,
that said, Benji does have more plot utility than the 7-year-olds from Wells's run. So he's got that going for him. Good work, Benji.
So that is a low bar.
Hey, Romy, Michelle,
what's her name? And then the other one.
Stephanie, and the other one, honestly, like they had potential.
No.
Oh God. Anyway, moving on. So, like you, Kelly, here's my notes. I felt like the way May was drawn at times was incredibly inconsistent. You look at how Silk and Gwen are drawn, and whereas boob socks are not as prevalent, they're adult women.
Yeah, again, the underage girl is wearing body paint. I'm sorry that somebody needed to get their jollies off on that, but that was disgusting, and I'm going to point that out because there is a particular editor who is still with Marvel who, has defended the issue with her in a shower.
Yeah.
And then you look at people like Spider Woman. I put, Spider ... woman. That was not her name in Old Man Logan. I seem to recall it was a far more derogatory name for one. Ashley Barton, and Jessica.
I thought about a different one.
No, Jessica,
look. I've had to drop a few curse words. Let's just say her name.
Her name was Spider Bitch in Old Man Logan.
I'm Mark Millar. I'm edgy. Meh.
Silk in particular felt weird because her suit was an organic costume that was different than the mess of webbing that was her first outfit. And I also don't want to get into the larger thing about how Slott writes women in general, but it's incredibly clunky here.
No. Let's get into it. That Slott can't write women because I was gonna go too far.
But in regards
y'all
to
can figure out what I was gonna say on why he can't write women.
Yeah, in regards to Mayday herself, her singular focus is that she's just angry. And I get it. Story context, she just lost her family. She's disoriented, everything like that.
I'll
But
be
that
honest,
is,
she actually comes off like legitimately like, okay, I understand this character. And it's almost to the point like she's not breaking down as much as I would assume she would.
yeah, because like, you
Because
know,
she's like the only one laser focused too. She's like, y'all, I need to save my brother. I want to get these guys. Like, we
yeah,
need to get these guys. Like, what's going on here? Because everybody else is just popcorn.
that's true.
It's
I
a
mean,
grand old time in the cult of the spider.
They go where the plot needs them to go, and
Yeah.
I'll say this,
Mayday's the only
she's-
one. Oddly enough, Mayday's the only one acting with any agency outside of the plot.
It's true.
now I'll say this: she's not hot-headed, at least at this point. And
No, it gets
truthfully,
worse.
she's and the character never has been hot-headed. I mean, she's been
No.
very, very level-headed throughout her entire publishing history, and that's one of the elements of her characterization that also makes her stand out compared to Peter, because Peter's temper is well known. But you have MJ's calm demeanor when it comes to that. She always balanced Peter out in terms of his anger sometimes, and we saw that with Peter in the 982. So like you see her raising in at least in this part of the story. Now, when we get to another part of the story, that's going to be an entirely different thing. But like that's I just need to point that out. Like you're right. She is very laser focused, and I think I may have misread it a little bit when I read it.
It's the one positive I will give her characterization here is she is the only one that is like, I'm ready for this to be over. I'm not a part of you guys. I'm not dealing with this. This is too weird. I'm literally dealing with like the biggest loss of my life, and we'll go into it as I break it down because we've got some scenes where that's dealt with. And she's like, y'all promised to help. Where's this help? What are we doing? Well, everybody else is like, let's have a pissing contest. Let's fight. Let's party. Woohoo!
Oh God,
We're family.
It gets
Weird. Like, she's the only one trying to hold on. What's so funny is it's the character is trying her best to hold on to the actual plot of the story while everybody else is spinning around out of control.
So yeah, that's all my notes. Kelly, you got anything further to add with those two issues?
No.
All right. Speaking of Kelly, she's going to do the breakdowns for the next two issues, and I'm going to sit back and do the popcorn meme as we go. So,
I thought I was as nice as possible here, but to preface, I'm going to pepper in bits and pieces, I assume, as I read, because it helps me make some of the characterization for May more bearable. So I'm going to kind of try and connect dots, and this is my brain connecting the dots. AKA, I am punching this story up a bit and rewriting it because it is so clunky. It gets so discombobulated, especially in these two issues. The story falls apart. Let's be fair. And you have to, like I said, you have to kind of punch this up because it's not good storytelling. I'm sorry. There's too many cooks involved, too many cooks in the kitchen. It's a mess. And with that, here we go. So ASM Volume 3, number 11. In the safe zone, May, who's literally in absolute agony and probably still in complete shock over everything, is still reeling from not being able to get Deimos in her grief rage. That as she looks on to Peter and Doc Ock, essentially, can I just say it, Zach? Whipping their dicks out for shits and giggles.
Basically, Slot here with the confrontation between Superior and Amazing is basically giving you the battle that should have.
It's a dick fighting contest with his OC.
Yes.
And the one that Marvel told him to put back.
Exactly.
So anyway,
synergy.
So Peter and Ock are fighting for zero effing reason. It's really whatever, and you can see that on May's face in one of those panels where she is just like, "Cool, this is happening now. Great, awesome." Cool. So anyway, it's a dumb fight. It was a dumb fight to begin with. It's a dumb fight, period. And she asks Mr. Universe, Captain Universe, whatever the heck his name is, to break it up. But he tells him that he can't pick sides, which breaking up a fight is literally not picking a side. So what the F? But anyway, thankfully,
Because you introduce an omnipowerful being that could have sat there and snapped his fingers and ended all this shit in 5 seconds, but then you had to sit there and provide restrictions
because
for
he
it.
wants to hold a baby.
Why isn't he? Wait a second. Why isn't Spider God in charge?
Did the Captain Universe powers make him sterile? What? I mean,
I love the fact that he
Look at
becomes
the
like
baby.
up until this point he is like literally the babysitter, and
yes.
he wants to be the babysitter, but he doesn't want to stop this fight. Okay,
Slay.
cool.
you have a literal like war going on in front of a child, but you don't want to stop the child or stop the war in front of the child to protect the child, but you just want to hold it and be like, see, Benji, this is our future. What?
Please help. Anyway, he didn't want to stop the fight. He felt like just stopping the fight and being Switzerland, was picking a side, apparently. I don't know.
Tell that to the Swiss.
Yeah, but thankfully the fight is over pretty quickly, and Peter of 616 has declared his dominance. He has the bigger dick, and finally the plot
He
can move forward.
He T-poses on auto.
Monkey brain.
Sorry. They continue to group and find more spiders, and May gets the weird case of the dumbs, apparently, and assumes no one has spider sense, even though she's been aware that everyone has spider sense this whole time. And, but anything to have a man talk down to her and also talk down to the audience, because Captain Universe talks down to her and talks down to the audience and saying this. That, everyone understands the bad feelings everyone's having because we all have spider sense. No shit, Sherlock. So anyway, bad things are afoot, and everyone is warned through the safe. Everyone is warned throughout the safe zone. The inheritors have found their way to World 13. A fight happens. The Great Mr. Universe, as I keep calling him Mr. Universe, whatever. The Great Mr. Universe, and apparently every spider then just suddenly loses hope. Wow, no one wants to fight. They just want to run. May clutches the ever de-aging, now newborn-looking Benji and asks, "Is that really what everyone is going to do? They're just going to give up? Is that it? Really? Seriously?" And of course, I'm punching her emotional integrity out because it's very clunky here. But she's like, "Seriously, that's it? Like we're not going to go fight?" And Moreland punches the crap out of her, knocking her out and causing Benji to be dropped. And then Moreland picks up the now appropriately sized Benji by the leg and declares that Benji is theirs. He is also the scion. And that's it for that issue. What is the scion? We'll explain.
And it's not a car brand.
It should be. RIP the Toyota brand scion. I like that.
You served
also,
us well.
in the final splash page, you have Mayday like screaming, "Oh no, please!"
Yeah,
no,
yeah, she is screaming no. I don't feel like that's. I mean, like obviously, I would be. Her entire thing has been to try to keep her brother safe, and now the inheritors have him.
Yes.
So, anyway, now we're moving on to Amazing Spider-Man, Volume 3, Issue 12. Baby Benji is back to being a newborn, and Moreland explains what a scion is. Which is basically the youngest totem in any universe. So he is the youngest spider in all of the universes ever, because woo, totem bullshit. Everyone is like, "Hold the line, let's see what they do," while Moreland holds a baby he wants to eat. Nobody wants to run and fight and save Benji. They just want to sit back and watch, which happens a lot. As I keep pointing out, happens a lot because plot, right? Literally, May is the only one talking sense, but she's still not doing anything. I'm going with she's in total shock, and this is like the freeze part of her PTSD dealing with this, but like it could just be terrible writing, probably. So some spider somewhere tells them to forget the child. I'm giving that line to Doc Ock because but like the spider is literally cut off from the panel, so I don't know which spider said it. And that's when the spiders attack, but only after. And again, I'm sorry, it's just this issue starts off so fan fiction written by a preteen, and that's only taken 4 weeks of a creative writing class, summer school. And I know that that's harsh, I'm trying to be kind. I am, but this scene is clunky and bad. It's real bad. So anyway, moving on. May sets her sights on Moreland and getting her brother back. She chases Moreland and totally doesn't have some weird "I'm gonna get you" while not actually moving in her spider-like agility, and really just sort of like slowly creeps towards Moreland in this scene kind of moment. That totally doesn't happen. It does happen. It's really weird. Anyway, and Moreland knocks her back like it's nothing and leaves through his portal. May screaming no as she gets up. The team Peter, so Peter team of 616, went off to get Laporadon and the emissary of hell to finally go after Solus, who I guess was just standing around on break while the other spiders went after Moreland, who took off with the baby, a literal baby. And I'm going to continue to bring up that so many spiders just stood there and let a monster run off with a baby and didn't do shit. Like, I'm just going to keep bringing that up. So just I think that that's an important thing to point out. So anyway, as the mech beats on Solus, May reminds them that Solus can tell them where her brother is. Peter of 616 goes on a guilt trip, finally, because at least, he does seem to care about what's going on, but he's got a plan, and for that plan to work, they all need to run from Solus. Who would be able to tell them where Benji is, because apparently no one is understanding that the inheritors want to eat the baby. Anyway, May gets dragged away into a portal by 616 Peter into prehistoric Earth 8847. May's finally had it. As 616 Peter tries to tell her, hey, look, we'll find your brother, I promise. May's over it. These guys are a bunch of fakes. No one is sticking to any sort of plan, and everything is so convoluted, and there are too many damn cooks in the kitchen. No one cares about her brother or the fact that she just lost her family and her boyfriend and left without knowing what happened to her world. She was taken away from the fight by these other spiders who do absolutely nothing unless some random male tells them what to do. More and more spiders are coming in, and it seems like their problems are far more pressing. Screw it. Just screw it. May's baby brother, the only family she has left, was taken to be eaten. That's not a story to save for later, even though for these creatives with this story, it's because they need to milk this event for all it's worth. So plot dictates things will work out later. But as far as stakes go here, this is high. Very high. And this is far more serious than everyone who is still alive to be dealing with. Yet no one seems to care about what's happening to Spider-Girl. Happening to the Spider-Girl, as they brought up in issue 8. So yeah, May's finally effing had it. And even as 616 Peter tries to talk to her, he gets distracted hearing Jess on the communicator comlink, meaning he doesn't even care that much about May's distress to ignore a call for a couple seconds to talk to her. So again, this story is so everywhere in a bad way, and May is kind of the audience to this insanity because she is the only one trying to keep the story straight. So we next see May fighting with the inheritors who have followed them into prehistoric Earth. None of the spiders can really get away when they know their every move. Okay. At the inheritors' lair, Moreland gives the newborn-looking Benji to Bora and Brix to look after. And even though they let the bride, aka Silk, slip, because Silk, mail order bride, slip through their fingers earlier, Jessica runs into them after getting scrolls from the web weaver thing, and sends them to 616 Peter. He takes the scrolls to get a message to Cindy that she's found, and gets a message from Cindy that she's found a new possible safe world. Peter and co. jump to it, and they find that the air is inhospitable. But we see a webbed arrow that follows into an underground bunker. Cindy tells 616 Peter to brace himself because inside the bunker is Uncle Ben, to be continued.
It's Uncle Has Been, as I deemed him.
We don't know that yet.
Oh, okay, my bad. Sorry.
Sorry, was I too snarky?
No, you were appropriate amount of
somehow I made that. I actually made that entire dialogue far better. I just want
Uh,
everyone to understand that. I really did. If you go back and read the issue, you'll understand that I gave far more emotion than plot did.
yes, yes. I mean, we sit there and have these jump. Okay, so like some of the scenes in this book, you have these jump cuts where we're jumping to like, oh, hey, and here's the Ultimate Spider-Man. You got the Ultimate Spider-Man of the animated series, and you have the Ultimate Spider-Man of his Ultimate Universe riding around in Peter
Wacky
Park's
things.
car, going having these multiversal shenanigans where they went and got the 1967 Spider-Man and the Spider-Man of like the little Chris Alipios
That's what I was
comics
gonna
from the
say,
1990s.
I thought you would say Lego Spider-Man. He's
I
one of the
mean,
best
it's
ones.
basically
They could have gotten him.
basically what we are getting right now is what you got at the beginning of Spider-Verse, the movie, but that was far better written than this shit.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, so to my notes, the first thing I wrote in my notes was, I just felt like I needed to point that out. This story proves that only a handful of writers can write stories of such a scope. When you think of universal spanning events, such as the original Crisis on Infinite Earths, Kurt Busiek's Avengers versus JLA Avengers, Jeff Johns' Green Lantern, is extremely hard to write as large a cast of characters and keep a cohesive narrative. If you weren't reading the ancillary material that is attached to this event, you don't know what, I'm going to use my one F-bomb, what the fuck is going on? It's a discombobulated mess. Even in those stories, in this story, there is a paring down of characters to manageable levels, but to be at the core of the story, the heart of the story, you're paring all these characters down because you have these side quests that you decided to arbitrarily make because you let the marketing department take over. And I'll be honest, the ancillary materials that spun out of this story, I tend to like more than the main book. And I was routinely reminded as I'm reading this of that. It's when I speak of positives about this story, it's not about the main story. It's about things like Scarlet Spiders. And it's going to be a problem that we're going to not only discuss here, but in future Spider-Verse multitraversial things. So, Kelly, final thoughts on this part.
My final thoughts. Yeah. So, wow, this story quickly falls apart really, really quickly by its constant need to bloat the cast up and, get every single spider involved and highlighted, which, hey, it's what this event was supposed to do for the better or, and for better or worse, I will give it that. It does do what it was marketed to do. But in terms of what this story is for Make Mine Mayday, May's storyline is at least complete. Like it gets completely it falls apart and is swept under the rug until the end. And it feels like that's what these Spider-Men want to do. They want to sweep her under the rug because their problems are more important, and most of them are like, as I stated earlier, as crassly as possible, a dick whipping contest. Like it's so
because you demanded it.
Yeah, because men only read these comics, right? It's not very Spider-Man of them to not be focused on, saving lives because none of them are focused on saving a life, period. Like an innocent little baby should have been top priority to keep away from the inheritors. And no one cared. Literally no one cared. Literally someone who was probably Superior Spider-Man said, "Who cares about the baby?"
I mean,
like think about that.
It is Otto. So
Well, it is, but
he's
said,
the only one in character in this entire story because it's Slot's OC.
Wonder. Yeah. So anyway, it's not very Spider-Man of them. I know some people love this event, and it was popular, and it did help put Miles and other major characters on the big screen. and it did some good in the end, but this thing is a mess, and it just gets more convoluted and confusing the further we go. But at least we are now set up for a welcomed, even though not under the best circumstances, a Tom and Ron issue.
It's our palate cleanser for the rest of this event.
Yeah.
You get the one, and that's it.
Yeah.
To kind of dovetail on that point, and we will talk about this definitely also more in the next episode. The plot's driving the characters. The characters aren't driving the plot.
Where's the plot?
There is no plot. The plot is everything is well, hang on. Everything is reactionary. Every single solitary thing that happens in this story is Peter reacting. Even when Slotto is in quote unquote in charge of his team, they're still all reacting. They're not being proactive at any point. And then you get to the point where we find out that the Master Weaver is a turncoat in this story. At this point in the story, we get given these magical effing scrolls that are supposed to solve all the problems. And again, if you're not reading the ancillary material, if you're just reading this hardcover,
You're screwed.
You're not getting the story.
You don't get the story. You don't understand it. And I want to bring that fact up too about stuff like that, because again, it's like, oh, well, you need to be reading this and that. So way back in early 2000s fan fiction land, I wrote fan fiction. I actually was one of the writers in a very large Batman Beyond community, and I was one of the youngest.
Right.
And when I put my work out there, and of course, again, I was 12, 13, I was really young and probably didn't deserve half the hate and the tone that the criticism was given. But when I put my work out there in the public and it got destroyed, or certain bits and angles got demolished, even I knew then not to take it to heart. Because I distinctly remember a lot of discussion about Mary Sue's and what is and isn't a Mary Sue in OCs. And I got destroyed. I still take that with me every time I read something, because it taught me to be better. It taught me to write better. And even though I didn't go into the profession, and no, I'm not a Marvel comic writer, because I have morals and
I respect my mental health enough to not write for Marvel.
But again, I put my stuff out there in the public for free and got destroyed. And at 12 years old, I could take that. And this is at 12 years old, where like a girl, would say Kelly's fat in the schoolyard, and I would bust out crying or whatever. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there was nasty, mean girl drama at home, but I could still take someone saying, hey, this character is crap. It's a Mary Sue. You've overpowered her, XYZ here, XYZ there. I could still take that and understand, okay, what can I do better? How can I be better? And that's something that did not happen here.
Mm-hmm.
And this was a large beginning of the end for Marvel in terms of criticism. We are basically, these podcasts and what we do are essentially the fanfiction.net, our AO3 comment section. That's what Crawlspace is. That's what Spidey Dude is. That's what Spider Talk is. We will give, positive feedback when it's deserved and negative feedback when it's deserved, based on what we understand. And I'm saying that just to be as neutral as possible, because we could all go into who said what and if that's actually valid. But again, we're all coming at it, though, for wanting a better story. This is the first time where anytime we spoke like that out loud online, and even now, like, because this is kind of what I want to preface before I let Zach talk, is, as you can see, we've completely ripped this thing to shreds. And we did try so hard.
I mean, we spent...
be positive.
We had multiple discussions before this episode talking about it because we wanted to try to be fair, but again, there comes a certain point where if I'm being fair, this is not good from an objective standpoint.
And that's what I'm trying to make sure that this is understood, because back in the day when we basically did the same thing, people were completely destroyed. Marvel pretty much allowed any and all criticism to be twisted as trolling and as hate, and that's not the case. And it's not the case then, it's not the case 10 years after, now in the current day. And that's something I want to make sure is stressed, because I'm sorry, you are a professional writer, you are a professional editor, you can take the criticism.
And look,
and you can use it and be better, or you can choose to ignore it and move on with your day.
Well, and look, and I also want to specifically specify, because I literally just retweeted something about, since it is San Diego weekend, there is the Marvel Legends reveals that happened this weekend. And one of the guys, Dan, who's part of the team, has his own personal Twitter account that people, if you're a fan of that stuff, like of Marvel Legends stuff, you should follow, because he's going to give you information, right? And they'll take constructive criticism. It's when you're not being constructive, and those that choose not to be constructive, we're not talking about you. And you should be called out and called to the carpet for that. Not saying you don't deserve to be passionate, because we're passionate. We rip this thing to shreds, but we try to be as objectively fair and reasoned with our criticisms.
Like, y'all do not understand the phone calls and the message threads that we had. We tried so hard.
We've been dreading this on a certain level, and we've been worried about it, because we don't want certain people to take what we're having to say and turn around and twist it. And look, for those that make
this is also this Spider-Verse, for some fans, is the first time they ever saw Mayday, and I'm very happy that y'all saw Mayday and chose to love her and start your journey with her from here, because this is not the way. This is her darkest moment. So thank you for being there, and for doing that. But
they have a whole series showing you the correct way to.
Yeah. Well, now, yeah.
And look,
but that's what I'm saying, is that I know that, and I don't want to sit there and be like, oh, we're bashing this thing that you hold dear and you treasure. But going, we have been reading this series for you. I mean, like, we're not just sitting here writing notes from what we remember. We are rereading everything. Everything is fresh when we write our notes, and we are diving deep, and we're going into it, and we're seeing it with current eyes, and we're remembering what, how we read it for the first time, and trying to bring this big, complete collection to you guys as a fan, and say, this is what it was like to be a fan. And so, like I said, if you've been reading with us, you understand how much of a gut punch this is.
If this is your first episode, welcome.
You jumped in at a really rough time.
And we've made, look, throughout the show's run, we've made jokes about it being the best of times and the worst of times. But
it's a dark moment. I mean,
it's a dark story
moment, and it's a dark story. It's a dark moment for Mayday, but it's also just a really dark time for comics in general. I really do feel like the creativity and the zest for life was taken away out of Marvel and DC within this time period, from 2011 to now. Honestly, it's been really bad.
Well, and it also goes to all the corporate structuring and changes and sapping away the creative element.
Marketing is king.
Marketing
story falls to the wayside.
As I said before we literally started, one of the biggest issues of this story, and it's partly Slott's fault, but it's also a massive amount of fault should lie at the feet of the editors and frankly, at the marketing department, the scope and level of story that you're trying to tell was always going to collapse on itself, because there's so much going on that you're, especially in this story, you're required to read all this other stuff. And I remember I had just rejoined Crawlspace around this time, and I remember doing the Spider Satellite books, and I remember it was like 37 books on a Spider like the second iteration of Spider Satellites. It was like me and Ashley and Brad, and I mean, it was like an absurd amount of material that you have to read to understand this story. And this is a blueprint that they have now followed over and over on a damn near yearly basis ever since.
And you wonder why we're all burned out.
Yeah. And look, at this point, I was 2014. We'd been doing Crawlspace at that point since 2006. So almost, it was 8 years at that point. Like we hadn't, it wasn't like it was our first rodeo and we just started. So we were reading all this sequentially in order. We had read all the Superior stuff and everything like that. So to come back and now take it as a snapshot it's difficult. And so look, there's some announcements that we'll be making that involve Slott, not himself, but like Slott books that we've talked about over the years. And that'll be coming on our other show. But again, we, on everything that we approach, whether it is the current stuff or the stuff of the past, we will try to be as objective and fair as humanly possible. Even if it's stuff we enjoy, if you've watched us for a long time and we've had a consistent number of viewers watching us live, thank you for watching us live. You know, when there's something that we don't like and something we disagree with, we'll rightfully call something out.
Yeah.
So I think
we're not afraid to say what we need to say and express ourselves and express our opinion. But you know, we're not just sitting here saying this sucks to say it sucks. We're not, as much as like, yes, we were definitely making fun of Slott, and I'm sorry, his actions have caused this. This is we are reacting to his actions.
It's easy.
We like the characters are all reacting to this.
Anyway,
it's like that segment on Deadliest Warrior where the guy would go up to the mannequin and just start stabbing with a knife. It's like, wow, that was the easiest target in the world.
Death by 1,000 cuts.
Yeah, and again, I'm not trying to be mean about it. Like I said, this has been 10 years ago. And
also for those that made threats, both
yes,
to
Please
him,
stop.
Don't. That's stupid. That's egregious.
Don't threaten. Like, you know, y'all can tell I'm not a fan of Nick Lowe, especially not lately.
Right.
I'm never going to sit there and threaten his family. Honestly, I hope he has a very nice, peaceful life. I just wish he would go to editing books he actually cares about. Like, I actually want him to find joy in life and joy in what he does. Same goes for Slott.
Steve,
like, like everybody. I want them to find things that they're actually productive in and that they can grow in and that they can not be so focused on the quote unquote haters. That, you know, that they have created this us versus them mentality towards, because I don't think like that either,
because like it's cyclical, and we're at that same cycle right now. I mean, that was what we're talking about in these books, that mob mentality.
Don't do it, because that's kind of what's happened with this us versus them mentality. And so then anytime anybody says anything that is actual valid criticism, it is twisted
and drowned out
to trolling and hate, which it's not. So be respectful.
Yeah, don't be a dick. Like what you like and don't be a dick.
Yeah.
And also make sure to be rational in your criticism. If you give very technical, very precise criticism, it makes it much harder for them to rebuke with just, oh, you're a hater.
Which I failed at today. I'm sorry, I got mad.
You did fine. Spider-Verse is bad. Wow, this water is wet. But the problem is that when you cede ground to the publisher and say like, oh, you give them criticism to go, oh, these are just the haters, it gives precedent for a much more extreme, I'm not going to name names, we all know who I'm talking about, to take over the comics criticism community and then poison the well, so that when there's actual good faith criticism, it's buried under a bunch of other garbage that makes our
Disgustingness. Yeah.
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
And
Again, look, I have often said that that Dan Slott is welcome on any of my programs. Maybe not this one, but
I mean, look, if he wants to come chat, like, I'm not going to say anything, but at the same time, I'm also not going to hide people's questions.
no, I'm not. And look, we didn't bring up a lot of the comments tonight because, frankly, we wanted to make sure our focus was direct, right?
That and time.
Yeah, because
speaking of time,
yeah,
let's start wrapping it up because we're almost at 2 hours.
yeah. So with that being said,
sorry.
No, that's good. It's a segue. I mean, it is a segue. All right. So if you want to, first of all, thanks for Neil for helping out with us tonight.
Mm-hmm. We need to go over next episode, which of course is the remainder of Spider-Verse. So
if you didn't already know.
Yeah. So I don't have my little calendar in front of me, but we actually have everything planned out for at least up to the end of Spider-Geddon. So anything that has not been made this year should be finished by the end of this year. But we're going to go over as I lost my place, but we're going to finish up Spider-Verse. We'll start with Tom and Ron's issue in Spider-Verse Team Up number 3 and conclude the story in Amazing Spider-Verse or Amazing Spider-Man Volume 3, 13 through 15. Yippee. So definitely stay tuned if you definitely want to continue to hear some snark. I promise things do get better because after that, of course, we'll go into Spider-Girls and Spider-Geddon. And then we'll take a small break. And then, of course, we'll go into everything that's happened this year.
And next time you see me on this show, I will be in a different location. For those that are watching us live on YouTube, you might have seen like the blank space of the wall behind me. So that'll be exciting. And I'm looking forward to finishing this event.
I'll still be here.
We might
not
bring
on the show. Probably not. But
I mean, if you have something you want to say about something, or if we need you as a man behind the chair and you want to pop in, it's always cool.
You can be this, Zordon to me and Kelly's Power Ranger, I guess.
I try to do a Zordon voice, but I don't think
I can. No. Let's
David Felding, you are not.
Find some 30-year-olds with attitude.
30. We definitely are.
Honestly, that is the tagline of tonight's episode: 30-year-olds with attitude.
and a 24-year-old just off to the side.
Again, for everybody watching live on YouTube, thank you for watching. And if you want to follow us on social media, which was definitely important in the lead up to this episode, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter Facebook's at Spidey Dude Network, also on Instagram and on Threads. We have Twitter at Spidey Dude Radio and at Mine Mayday. Obviously, if you are listening to the audio edition, follow us on YouTube. You get to see us talk about these books live. And at Spidey Dude Radio Network, TikTok at Mayday, Mine Mayday, and at Spidey Dude Network. Also, you can always find all of our shows here on the Spidey Dude Radio Network. Shows such as those shows like Clone Saga Chronicles, Spectacular Radio, Amazing Spider-Man Classics. Sal Buscema Era Podcast has a new episode out, as well as Voices from the Eerie. So if you have not checked those out, check those out. Subscribe to them on your favorite podcasting catchers. And of course, check out Books of X, which is part of our Patreon page at patreon.com/Spidey Dude Network. We got our Spidey Dude VIPs, Scott, Sebastian, Venkman, Winnipeg Webhead, and then our friendly neighborhoods here. You see them on the screen. I will be giving them the audio shout out on the audio edition. Then we have sensational tier patrons: Allison, Cindy, Ed, Georgia, Adam, Janelle, Jurgen, Jessica, Catherine, Kale, Keegar, Laura Howard, Master Drammond, Phoenician, Scott, Vanessa, and Vicky. Thank you guys for all your support and all your help out here at the Spidey Radio Network. We cannot wait to bring you more great content. And with that, we'll see you next time here on Make Mine Mayday.